Hello and welcome to this re-recording of a presentation that Zoe and I and Vicky gave at the kickoff event of our Totnes Grows Flax project on the 4th of April. I'm Victoria. I'm one of the coordinators at Transition Town Totnes.
And I'm Zoe Gilbertson and I run LiftLad. And I'll also be speaking on behalf of Vicky Putler, who was at the original presentation but can't make this recording. Over to you, Victoria.
Right, thank you. So Totnes Grows Flax is a collaboration between Transition Town Totnes. Zoe is from LiftLad CIC and from the Plymouth-based Flax project by Vicky Putler. So could you share your slides? Thank you. That's great. So at Transition Town Totnes, we focus on taking positive actions together in a changing world, and we do this through a wide range of grassroots community projects. And we are actually celebrating our 20-year anniversary this year, so keep your eyes out for a busy program of events over the coming months, including our Midsummer Festival from the 20th to the 22nd of June 2025. And these are some of the projects you might be aware of. The Totnes Climate Hub, which is situated in the mansion and open from Wednesday till Saturday, 11 till 3 o'clock, which is also the collection point for the flax seeds. We've got our nature recovery project called 30 by 30, and our sort of knowledge sharing discussion project that I also coordinate, the Community Resilience Forum. Now, I don't have time to go into all those projects, and that's also not the focus of today, but do look around our website to find out more. I do want to take a brief moment to explain how Totnes Grows Flax is aligned with our history at Transition Town Totnes. So an important piece of our past was our crop gaps report, which identified the areas of food growing that our transition food group could focus on. And this builds upon the earlier report from 2007 called Can Totnes Feed Itself, which was exploring the practicalities of relocalizing food production. And the most prominent piece of work this led to was the Grown in Totnes project, pioneered by Holly Tiffin, to reintroduce a local grain mill and support the use of local crops, selling locally grown and milled grains. And the tools have since changed hands to Darting Mill, and you can still buy locally grown and milled grains in the shops under the name Reclaim the Grain. Now, one of the reasons we're excited about this project you'll hear about today is because Transition Town Totnes has been looking at local crop use. And when we've done that, we've focused on, doing this through our food working group. Whereas what Totnes Grows Flax will focus on is the awareness raising of locally grown materials. And with that, I'm handing over to Zoe to share more about the context of flax.
Brilliant. Thanks, Vicky. So just give you a quick intro. I am Zoe Gilbertson, founder of LiftLad, a not-for-profit design lab, and we're developing strategy and practice to enable low energy, local livelihoods rooted in nature and community. I also run the UK Bast Fibre Network, and I'm coordinating the Southwest Textile Commons. So I call myself a fashion ecologist. I was originally a fashion designer. I now work on textile systems. I'm an educator working at the intersections of fashion, farming, and fibre. And I've been involved in sustainable fashion for 20 odd years. And in that time, the use of fossil fuel fibres and the production of fast fashion has increased exponentially. And fashion is really representative of this extractive polycrisis we're currently living through. The world is very uncertain, very scary, and local agency is something that most of us have some form of agency over local resilience. So fashion is one of the biggest offenders, and we're working on this local textile project, local materials project, as really as an appropriate response to all of the crises in the world, exploring a connection to land and nature, but also bringing a sense of fun, a sense of agency, exploring history, and all of those things. So this project is about exploring what we can do together. And I like to think of it through the lens of working in a bioregion and commoning. So commoning is an activation of relationships that bind communities together. A bioregion shares ecological, geographical, and cultural characteristics. And these concepts form a framework from which to experiment and build new ways of working together that generates value and meaning not easily captured by markets and prices. And Totnes is famous for its local resilience building. And clothing, textiles, building materials, paper, we used to make all of these things locally. But gradually, over a few hundred years, we've moved away from this as people and places are exploited elsewhere. Clothing used to be really expensive, a visual determinant of class, and it takes a long time to make cloth. And that's kind of what we're exploring here. We're exploring the process and the capacity and learning how to make things from local materials again. So I recently did some research into bioregional resilience through bast fibers. I had a Churchill Fellowship. I went through Europe to learn about small-scale collaborative production, to learn about flax and hemp growing. I made connections, developed knowledge exchange and learning to be able to bring that back to the UK and try and create our own systems here. So what we're looking at here, we're looking at growing linen, which is flax, which is in the top left-hand corner. And you're probably all aware that you can make clothing out of linen. Flax makes linen, which you can make clothing from. But you can also make mulch, you can make composites, which you can make things like skis, chairs. You can make flooring, linoleum, lino is originally from linen, from flax, and linseed oil. You're all familiar with flaxseed and flax oil. So there's a lot of different things you can make from it, which all require different processes, but we're starting with the growing and we're starting the exploration from that point. So we're gathering information from the present and we're gathering information from the past, and this helps us know how to begin. And the history of flax and linen is fairly vague prior to the 1550s, but we can assume that most households made fairly rustic linen from hemp and flax for hundreds and hundreds of years, before everything became industrial from the 1800s onwards. Trade in textiles has been extensive since medieval times, but much of our written history is about what the upper classes wore and traded. Household textiles were built with linen. People's dowries were built on linen, so it was considered much more valuable than gold at one point. And textile historians always talk about textile manufacture, but it's not always clear where the raw material came from, even back in the 1600s. So we know we made linen. We used to grow flax and hemp everywhere in the UK. There were spinners and weavers in every town. And doing some research, we discovered that there was a flax spinning mill in Tuckenhay, one of only 3 in Devon. But it closed in 1830 and the mill turned to paper production. We don't know exactly what it made there. It's now holiday apartments, so you can still go and see, but you can see the industrial shape of the buildings. But we think it probably made sailcloth because it was on the river and they also sold sail provisions there. So yeah, we're digging deep into how linen was made in Devon, but we're also learning about how it was grown and processed. So When you grow flax in the field, which is how it's grown in France and in Normandy, where most of the world's flax production is grown across that bank of Belgium and France. Harvesting the flax requires a specialist flax puller, which you can see on the right there. It also requires weeding, so a specialist weeder across the field. And then there's machinery to pull it and turn it and ret it in the field. So we're going to be learning about these processes by hand, but I just wanted to quickly show you how it's done at field scale. So by hand, you would weed. We will plant the linen in, in rows like this. It's a lot easier to manage the weeding. Some people used to broadcast it, but you can see you just weed when the flax is really small. You can see there's quite a lot of people involved here. This is a larger project in the Netherlands, but this is how the flax grows. And then once you've harvested it, you pull it by the roots and you lay it flat on the ground for retting, if you're going to do a process called retting, which is retting in the field. And then if you want to do the retting process in water, in a tank, in an old bath or an old tub you might have, it's a slightly different process. But all of these processes we will take you through step by step once the project gets going. Once you've grown and retted the flax and dried it, you have to process it. So this diagram shows a medium scale scutching mill. Now that's what a scutching mill is, where the flax is processed from raw straw to what you call scutched flax at the end of it. And this is a fairly small scale scutching mill in Northern Ireland that's recently been revived using old found machinery. They found machinery in a barn. So this is how you'll go from raw straw to scutched flax at the end of the process. And again, we will be doing this process by hand, but the machine process is very similar. These are some small scale scutching machines newly developed by an organic farm in Canada, Nova Scotia, Canada. And they developed small scale machinery for linen and hemp to be able to process the flax on their farm. So I went to visit this machinery in France, and it was great to see that process. And we, as part of the bigger project that this project is part of, a company called Fantasy Fiber Mill are producing much more rustic versions of the small scale flax processing machinery. So the idea that this is going to be open source, this is going to be really cheap for people to set up their own small scale production facilities should they wish to, maybe on farm, maybe not, because it is quite a process to learn and understand it. But this is part of the bigger project that we're trying to make the means of production easily available to people, because the large scale scutching machines that you can buy cost millions and millions of pounds to set up, whereas if we can do it with this open source, really small scale, cheap to set up scutching machinery, we'll be able to have the means to process textiles. So this is how we will be processing the flax in our Totnes Grows Flax projects. So we'll be breaking, scutching and hackling. And this is done through really quite simple machinery here. You can see me, I'm breaking, it's actually hemp there, but flax is very similar. Breaking and then scutching, and then on the right here, Martin is hackling, which is running the flax through a series of combs to create a fine ponytail, which is what you can then spin and turn into materials and products. So that was a brief overview of flax. and its potential. So as I mentioned earlier, this Totnes Grows Flax project is part of a bigger project we're calling the Southwest Textile Commons. So this Textile Commons is supporting bioregional material production through thriving networks of growers, farmers, designers, processors, enterprise creators, community groups, and fiber enthusiasts. So we're rethinking scale, we're developing infrastructure, and we're working collectively to try and work out these problems and try and figure out how we can create local material production. So at the moment, the core partners are Wessex Community Assets, Liflad, Fantasy Fibre Mill, who I mentioned earlier, and Southwest England Fibershed, who Fibershed are a network of fibre professionals and fibre farmers across the Southwest, mainly working with wool, but they're also really interested in the development of flax infrastructure as well. So we're working with regional collaborators to develop this and as kind of an enterprise ecosystem through the commons, where our values are to support people working on learning together to support people to produce items locally. So the idea is that ultimately, rather than having this industrial and extractive system where you have huge machinery supporting just one or two people to create large volumes of product, you rethink the scale and you have multiple distribution of small scale facilities, working with people with small farms locally to produce products. So the value is shared across a much wider range of people rather than being concentrated in one area. So we're really hoping that a combination of small scale and lab scale setups will create resilient bioregional agroecological support system, and that this system will support local enterprise and community collaboration. So that is really the big picture underpinning what we're doing. And just wanted to give you a quick note on land use and food and fiber, because sometimes people say, but we have to grow our own local food, which we do. How do we do that and grow local materials or grow materials for textiles? And of course, it's really important that we grow more of our own local food. The benefits of flax and hemp is that they can bring another crop into the rotation for an organic rotation. They bring biodiversity. Linseed, which is the same crop as fiber flax, brings the linnet bird, so it can increase biodiversity in many different ways. So the more crops we can have, the better. And we're also looking at how we can make the flax crop itself a land race and bring more diversity through that. But that's a big, complicated, separate project that we're also working on in the background. So these numbers show that 1 hectare of land, roughly, these are all rough estimates, creates 5 tons of wheat. From that, you can create 10,000 loaves. So 1 loaf is around 500 grams of flour. And the equivalent, on the equivalent piece of land, you'll grow 5 tons of flax straw. It's a very similar process to growing wheat. We'll create 900 kilograms of long line fiber, which will create half as much yarn, from which you can make around 750 pairs of jeans. But if you think about the difference between food and fiber, is that we can keep a pair of jeans for 20 years, but with food, we eat food. So we need that loaf of bread every day, whereas for flax and hemp, you'd be growing it and then its use would be put into use for a long time. So you're also locking up the carbon for a long time, or a much longer time from that aspect. So the idea is, through this project, we want to commoning production through a bioregion. That's our ultimate aim. But we're also having fun through growing the flax. If you want to find out more about these sort of bigger concepts and ideas, you can look at my report here through this link, or just type in Zoe Gilbertson Churchill and it should come up. So I'm going to give you a quick introduction to Vicky Putler, who runs the Flax Project, CIC. So Vicky is reviving the flax industry in southwest Britain. She's bringing linen production back to Plymouth and the Tamar Valley. And for about the last sort of 5 years, she's been figuring out how to grow flax down in Plymouth, and has done some really amazing work to get flax back into the conversation in Plymouth. Vicky couldn't be with us today, so I'm going to give you a quick run through of her project. So Vicky started out by reimagining, by looking at how, again, Plymouth could be self-sufficient, and how it could do this in a small scale way, and how it could start growing flax to produce items to support its local population. So she set herself up. She has a 1 acre field at Tamar, at the Tamar Grow local site. So she's situated just next to the lavender farm and the flower farm they have there, and the market gardens. It's a really lovely site. And she has been growing flax and processing it by hand over the last few years. This is Vicky's harvesting day. She works a lot with the community to harvest and pull the flax. People come up from Plymouth, and this you can see the process here of retting the flax in the field. So this is on the right hand slide, the flax lying down is being retted, and then on the right hand side, to the edge of the picture, you've got stooks of flax. So this is why once you've harvested and pulled the flax, you make them into these stooks, which stand and dry in the field for a bit, and they look really beautiful. And I think if you grow a meter of flax, you'll probably be able to gather enough for 1 stook, which you can have sitting in your garden if you like. These are women from, I think, pre-war period, harvesting flax locally. So it was a very communal activity. It does require quite a lot of people to do a whole field, but I think whole villages used to come out to do the flax harvest together. This is Vicky and I harvesting her flax in her field, which is fun. It's quite tiring though. You do have to build up the stamina if you want to do a whole day's work. And this is Vicky, does a lot of work with the community in Plymouth. She's based at, this is a place called The Plot, where the community come together and they do a lot of ceremony around the flax, which brings people together around the planting and the harvesting time. Vicky does a lot of workshops, doing corn doilies, doing flax processing by hand. So she's doing a lot of interesting work, reviving the culture of flax as well in Devon. This is how her fields look when she was doing some trials with the Soil Association, trying different varieties and testing different methods, measuring the height of the flax and seeing how things grow. And she recently received some FIPL funding to set up more resilient structures in her field so that she can do workshops, and she's also going to do tank retting of the flax in the field. And this is Vicky at her workshop at one of the Nudge buildings in Plymouth, where there are lots of different enterprises within the building, and she has this great studio where people come and do workshops. And I think these are some visitors from India who were at Plymouth University who are interested in learning more about flax. So back to Totnes Grows Flax. Next steps will be the actual growing of the flax. You'll be able to pick up your seeds very shortly. So you'll prepare your bed. This is me in Cambridge a few years ago, where I prepared a plot at a market garden. So make sure you fully rake and get a fine surface as possible. You can add a little bit of compost, but if you know not much has been grown in that plot, it should be fine. Flax doesn't need much input. Just make sure it's free of weeds and free of stones and roots and things like that if possible. Once you've planted your flax in rows, the seedlings should come up within, I think, about a week to 10 days. And within the first 3 weeks, you'll want to weed and remove all of the weeds at that point when the flax is small. And it's quite bouncy and springy, so it can be stood on and it will bounce back. But after, you don't want to stand on it after it gets to about 10 centimeters tall. This is a plot I prepared in my garden, and this is the flax in bloom. So you'll appreciate the blue flowers when they come out. Yeah, so this is various different stages of the flax. And yeah, when you harvest it, a square meter should come up to be it. You should be able to fit it in a bucket like that. You pull it by the roots, and then you can stook it like we were talking about earlier, or you can store it in a bucket. But you will receive full instruction from us throughout the process. And in the autumn, we will come together for a celebratory processing event. This is an image from Let's Grow Flax, another flax growing project in Surrey. And you can see, yeah, the community processing their flax. And this group, I think, also went on to spin and weave some of the flax, but we will see what people want to do through this project. We're open to your suggestions, and hopefully people will come forward with their ideas. So you can now collect seeds from April 19th from the Climate Hub. And we really want you to get them in the ground before mid-May. It's really important. The sooner we can get them in the ground, the better, because you've got 100 days, but once it goes beyond September, the flax is not very happy growing late into the early autumn. So yeah, get the seeds in the ground as soon as you can. And I will be at the Climate Hub on the 19th of April between 11 and 1 if you have any questions. So yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Zoe. And yeah, we hope you can join us this year.